With the quorum present, I'd like to call this a meeting of the Co-op Budget Committee to order at 6:30 p.m. This is a regular meeting for the month of November. It is occurring out of sequence of our normal timeframe due to the Thanksgiving holiday, so we're meeting a little bit earlier in the week. The agenda was posted more than 24 hours in advance of the meeting as required. I'd like to introduce myself, Darlene Mann, and the members of the Budget Committee who are present this evening, which includes Cindy Van Conant, Dave Blinn, Brian Rader, Raul Blanchet, Tom Whalen, and Tony Stanizzi. Matt McGuire has an excused absence for this evening. I'd also like to welcome Kelly Seeley, our BA, and Lauren DiGennaro, our Director of Student Services. If you could all please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'll ask at this time if there are any agenda adjustments for this evening. I'll mention that we do have a non-public scheduled in the next few minutes to talk about student services. I'll read the as required when we get to that point in the meeting, but I didn't know if anyone had anything they wanted to change the order of or add to. Seeing no changes, meeting observer for November is Cindy. And we'll move to the approval of minutes from the October meeting. I'll take a motion to approve the minutes as amended for the October meeting.
I'll make a motion.
Raul, seconded by Tony. I don't know if there are any other comments or recommendations this time. Okay, seeing none. All those in favor of approving the minutes of the October meeting as written? Aye.
Aye.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, Cindy and Dave abstaining. So that was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 0, 2. Okay, we can pass right on through public input since nobody's here. And while our meeting does say 6:40 for the non-public session, we'll just jump into it a little bit early. So Mark, as I mentioned to you, it would be about a half an hour. So at this point, I will take we need a roll call vote to move into non-public session. Our non-public session is per RSA 91-A:3, section 2C, for issues that would adversely affect the reputation of a non-committee member related to special education. So at this point, I'll take a motion to move into non-public session at 6:33 p.m. by Raul, seconded by
I'll second.
Brian. Cindy? Aye. Dave?
Aye.
Brian?
Aye.
Raul?
Aye.
Darlene? Aye.
Aye.
Tom? Aye. Tony? Great, unanimous. So we now stand in non-public session. that was really informative and helpful. Okay, so the next portion of the agenda is, well, I said this, I think I said this last month, so it's for the FY '24 budget review and school board update. And I know that there were some conversations at the school board meeting, so those two items could kind of be related depending on where we stand when we review the third round, and any, potential changes or items that may have come up at the school board level. So at this point, Kelly, I think I'll turn it over to you to just walk us through the changes that were in round 3.
Sure. I mean, I can, but
I was pleasantly surprised. Everyone's hopefully had a chance to take a look at the view. The budget view right now stands at just shy of $338,000 below the guidance view that we voted on at the last meeting. Thank you, Kelly, for all of your hard work to arrive at that number. If we could probably move over to the new, I'm sure those adjustments were, aside from, items and things that may have been changed in the new items section, just improvements on estimates and
Yes.
things like that in
And-
other
yes.
sections of the budget, based on new information and things
Exactly.
like that. So, does anyone have any questions for Kelly about those changes?
Can you just provide highlights, like,
yeah, really fast, because it was pretty much in personnel and benefits that I found the savings, and also special ed. There were, just as Darlene just said, we had new information, we had tighter scrutiny over some of the lines, and that's where we found the savings. I even added a few things, and yet we still have savings, so.
Right, so one of the things that is, I guess, within all of the savings that were realized, I think one of the bigger things where we had to make an adjustment the other way in the new items was the rigging system
Right.
at the high school.
Yes, that is, in the theater, there's, that's where you used to have all of the pulleys and all the sandbags and all of that stuff in behind the scenes for theater. Well, we still have that. So it's all very, very old and starting to become a safety issue. So we're looking to do a lot of improvements with the theater, and that's really the first one because it's definitely a safety issue. So the good news is I believe we have the ability to do it in sections. So that cost that I've put in there right now is like if we did the whole thing all at once. So we're doing some more review on can we split that up? Or is it such a safety issue that we need to just take care of it all? It would be great if we could phase it, do one section. I think there's 4 sections.
But there might be, you said it's part of maybe other improvements to the auditorium.
Oh, there's definitely more. We need to do some work on the curtains, and we need to do some work on the lighting, and I believe there was one other area that,
So can you remind us again, how long has that been there?
the auditorium.
Yeah, it was after the
Jeez.
original it was after the
Yes.
original building, right?
Yes, I want to say it's maybe 20 years
Yeah.
old, yeah.
It's starting to feel like the right number.
Right, and so it is definitely probably overdue in some cases to start making some improvements on the theater.
From a
so.
technology standpoint, does as we've phased in technology changes through the high school, has there been consideration for technology, like changes to, I don't know anything about what it takes to do anything with regard to sound or whatever in an auditorium, but I would just imagine that there are technical improvements and improvements in technology.
Sure, and those aren't really part of this. I mean, I guess the rigging is going to have a technical update. There will be no more sandbags
Right,
and no more.
I said technical, I meant more technological.
Yes,
so
right.
just, like,
So
the
that we
systems and
haven't
things
really
like that.
touched too much. I mean, like they have devices that are
Yeah.
newer
Yeah.
but yeah, there are definitely improvements that we can make. That's probably last on the list of
Right,
things that we
yes.
want to do. But yeah, so we're trying to phase them all in over
Yeah.
the course of maybe 5 years.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Did we ever take care of the air handling issue in that auditorium?
In the auditorium,
Yeah.
I guess I wasn't aware of a specific air handling
Well,
issue.
yeah,
so.
for years we talked about replacing the HVAC system, this big squeaky wheel up there.
I'm not aware that there's a squeaky wheel, but maybe there is.
So, okay, so we
Think
did.
that oil. That was
Yeah,
part of Ford
of,
phasing?
Yeah, there was something that Rick used to talk about, when I used to complain to him about the noise
Okay.
in the auditorium was that big squeaky wheel. Remember that, Cindy? When we had our award ceremonies there, and it was,
Oh, okay. Well, I just know of all the HVAC issues we do want to look at, that's probably low on the list of priorities,
Okay.
because the others seem to be more
okay,
urgent, so.
Okay, so I would, I hesitate to go into the whole guidance formula that we talked about at the last meeting, but I want to share one other tidbit of good news. That is, if I were to replace, because the formula of how we derive guidance is based on the inputs for FY '24, that include things like special education, NHRS, and elements of the budget. We could logically take a step that says, okay, we could recalculate guidance and keep recalculating guidance and keep recalculating guidance as we get better and better views of the budget. So I just did a very quick calculation and said, okay, if I replaced special education and NHRS, because those are two direct inputs into the formula, into our guidance formula, where would we be? And I'm happy to say, Kelly's gonna be very happy to hear, that that the current view that we have right now is $38,000 below where that guidance view would be.
Great.
So, I think we're personally in, really good standing, with regard to the operating budget. I would encourage everyone to, do your independent analysis to make sure that you're comfortable with, percentage changes that you're seeing, or if you need further clarification, we make sure we ask those questions and do our diligence and things like that. But, and as Kelly, as you said, I think, focusing on staffing and benefits and GMR and things like that, and the changes to NHRS, I think it put us in a good place, where that, area of the budget, just in that area alone, moving from round 2 to round 3, benefits dropped close to $400,000. So it was a significant improvement and change, and and not in any one place. You can see the improvement in health insurance, you can see it in dental, you can see it in FICA and in NHRS and things like that. So it's kind of throughout the benefits section of the budget. So that's good to see. And again, it's just it just, as you work through this process, you're able to, focus, and you have 4 budgets you're working on at the same time. And the staff is divided in many ways and into each of the districts and things like that.
So I have a question. Based on the notes and the files you sent out prior to this meeting, the round 2.1 requested number was 28,641,068, correct?
That was the whole budget. That was the budget with all the warrant articles, yes.
No, the guidance with all the full warrant, okay.
Yes, with all the warrant articles.
So the actual number requested for 2.1 was what?
The operating budget guidance number requested for round 2.1 was 26,963,602.
And then after all this, so for round 3, the number is down to what?
26,526,913.
So when you add up everything back up again,
With all the warrant articles?
yes,
The new full budget view would be 28,279,741. That's a 5% increase over the current budget.
so instead of being 6.5%, it's 5.0,
5.1.
5.1.
The operating budget is a 3.6% increase, and the full warrant, as it stands right now, is a 5.1% increase for the co-op.
Okay, that's pretty good.
And so I will add that when we're looking at the additional warrant articles, we have the 3rd year of the HESA contract, but Cindy, I think, has some information to share with regard to that. So as you look at the view of the trend file in the superintendent's view and in the new item section, there's a line called additional HESA. So Cindy, do you want to just talk a little bit to the additional 75,000? So the third year of the HESA contract was estimated to be 86,727, and there's an additional 75,279 for a total of $162,006. That would be on the warrant together, so we wouldn't be showing like two separate articles for HESA. It would be one HESA article for the $162,006.
Before I do that, did round three have the two retirements?
No, and that was the other thing I was going to say.
So we did have two retirements announced at the board meeting last week, so that was just something I wanted to remember.
Right.
I wasn't
Okay.
sure if round
Right,
three
so
had
there's
that.
a potential for some more savings if,
Okay.
based on the
right,
place
because you
order.
kinda shift.
Yeah, right.
There's
so-
an adjustment made for where those salaries are to
Yep,
where the,
and the retirement benefit will likely go down if those are the only two that
Right.
we have. So
great.
Was that in
okay,
the
we'll
professional
continue.
staff or the support staff?
Just the professional staff.
Professional, there were two retirements.
Is that one page per?
Yes.
Just one, it's just
Yes.
Oh,
one.
I'm sorry, I thought it was a whole package for me. I said, wait a minute, what is going
Thanks,
on here?
Raul. Pass it
Thank you.
along.
Communications is very important. No sign language, just tell me what this is. Just,
Did we already talk about the hearing? Did we already talk about the hearing increase? The hearing testing increases? Isn't it like $30,000 increase?
Thank you.
I'll look at it. Let me
Yeah,
look at
no,
it.
just tell me which line we're in.
All
We
right,
can
hold on.
absolutely talk about it.
Yep. Oh, thank goodness.
So that's-
Yeah, we had a little
that's
issue
why I
with that.
reprinted one, yeah.
Thank you.
So I was not on the HESA, so Kelly's probably more involved than I was, so if I get something wrong
368.
or if I have something that needs
Sure.
to be clarified, please step in, Kel. So basically, like you heard Lauren say,
Oh.
hiring
Yeah.
of support staff has been very difficult this year. Paras, even though she said we only have three, we still do have three positions that they haven't hired. Food service, custodial, all of the support staff, we've been struggling for really the last couple of years to have enough people to apply, let alone hire. So we discussed it at one of our meetings and decided to revisit the salary grid that we have for the next 2 years. The one would have been 2003 that we would have already had on there. So basically, you're looking at 2003, 23 and 24. That's now going to be our first grid. The warrant that we did for 3 years will no longer be in effect. This will be a new 2-year contract. And the difference for what we would have had on the warrant anyway, from what we had approved, is $86,000 to change these, change the grid to how it is currently. So with that, having the difficulty, they ended up hiring some people this year at higher steps than what some of their staff was already hired at, in order to be able to get people. So then that created, some disgruntled issues with new people coming in making more than people who had been there. So this was an attempt to bring us up to where we really should be. Our base rate before this grid was established was $12.63, I think, 34 cents, excuse me. Now they've shifted everything and made the bottom line a $15 an hour, which is basically you can get at Target or anywhere else. And we have to remember that these positions are the ones that really keep the school running. We can't have the school open if we don't have food service. We can't keep, the buildings clean, if we don't have custodial service. So they went back to HESA and HESA did ratify this. We did vote on it last week. And this is what we're gonna go forward with as far as the warrant in March. And we're gonna be asking for the 23-24 to be basically updated to this current grid that says 24 on it, and then extend that one more year for basically a 2-year contract. It is not Sanbornized. There was no, they did ask to have it looked at after 25, and they did say that they would revisit some of the issues, but there was no promises made about anything. Let me see, what else do I have in my, so the restructured grid has about an average of 8%, and those are within the step 2, step 3, 4. Those are basically where most of our people are hired in at. If you turn on the back page, it tells you the restructure was about 8%, so they decided to offer 8% to the off step. Since that way it would keep everybody kind of at the same, we wouldn't constantly be playing catch up. And the base step, like I said, it has been moved to $15. Step 9 was added, and the following, you can read on the details there. The Cat 1 position is now a Cat 2, which is food service and library assistant. They shifted the Cat 2 food service to a Cat 3, and the Cat 3 food service to a Cat 4. At the top of that, you'll see the health insurance cap at $18,000. That was in the previous agreement. That was not changed. Nothing was done with health insurance for either of these years. That was already, the $18,000 was already in the last warrant that we were planning on providing for March of this year. And then in 25, you can see they're not doing anything with the health. So the total warrant article will be asking for $162,006. And again, that difference is 86. We were gonna be asking 86,000 on the past contract that we've had.
So this addresses, obviously, staff for next year. Were there any, is there any way we were able to address staff in the current year?
Yes, we gave, based on when you were hired, a retention bonus. So I believe it was February 1st of last spring. If you were hired before that, you received a $2,000 retention bonus that's broken up over a couple of months.
And that's paid for through ESSER funds?
It is.
And that was the conversation, was we could do something for this year with the funds, but then that would just take them back to start over
Right.
the following year. So that's why we went to this. And just so that you know, on the bottom there, the little small table that has this current step and the 24 step, those were people who were hired in at a higher dollar. And now with the adjustment in the table, that's where their step would follow, and that way they don't lose money. They made it kind of even. And so those actually are individuals that are at those current steps that will be in 24 at the step that you see beside it.
So 7 stepping down to 5, but same money.
Right.
Right.
Cindy, can you explain what it says at the bottom there to be added to Article 15.1?
Oh, the GMR, I'm not sure Kelly can.
Yeah, the union wanted this statement in the agreement so that if the GMR is, if it exceeds, I can't talk, 10% for the 24-25 year, because we didn't negotiate any kind of a health insurance addition to the caps, then they want to be able to have open negotiations just for health insurance
So we agreed to reopen the contract if the GMR goes over 10%.
in 2024,
No
25.
promises, but a
Yes.
conversation.
Yes.
If it
Well,
goes over
this
that.
says open the contract, doesn't it?
Well, it
We shall
does, but
conduct
it's,
contract negotiations. That's different than no promises.
well, we will open it, but I mean, based on that statement, there's no
There's no commitment to any,
Yeah.
there's no commitment to a set number, it's just,
Right,
I just get nervous whenever you open a contract.
understood.
But a 10% increase, that's pretty significant.
It is significant.
We've seen
and
it, though.
Especially, at the
We've
lower
seen
pay
healthcare go
scales here,
10%
that
a year.
that can be
Right.
very significant for
Some
these
other school
individuals.
districts
So
have gone up
I
significantly
don't
more
have
than that this
heartburn
year.
with any of this.
18% is the number.
And
that we
the
think
school
of.
board, I think, is, if it is over 10%, I don't think it's going to be an issue that they would want to negotiate it, because they don't want anyone to have to, especially this group of people, to have to suffer,
Yep.
sure this
That's where
will,
we are, and this is what will be on the, this will be a warrant article in March.
I'm sure this will pass with flying colors, because I've never seen anybody be opposed to.
I hope
the
so.
HESA
Anything
Well, I
for
think one of
support.
the
At
the
least-
questions, then the comments that comes up every year when we discuss HESA is that, you know, we're saying, is it enough?
Right.
Is it enough?
Right.
So,
Right.
I look at the $15 to 16.22, thinking like, you gotta be kidding me, like, how does it,
Right, I mean,
Yep.
that
That's
was,
absurd.
that's the hard part, I mean, you know.
like I said, you go work at Target and goof off in the back room all day rather than deal with all these kids and everything else.
I mean, I think, obviously, we did a very nice reduction from version 2.1 to 3, so therefore, that amount is way above what this amount would be, so.
Sure.
We just have to remember, you know, when we are talking to the community, that they understand that. I mean, this is,
Right.
this increase is a very small percentage of our $28 million
Absolutely.
budget.
Yeah.
And again, these people are the people that keep the doors open, really. I mean, if we could.
They are the infrastructure.
They are.
Without them,
They
doesn't
are.
work.
Yeah, we legally can't open the schools without staff in the kitchen.
Right.
No wonder my wife
And it
comes
came
to the
down
school
pretty
to
close this year. They were
understand.
really having
Tell
a
her to
hard
keep
time.
coming.
Yes, they
getting
are, and
that
they
raise.
still are.
Um,
They
Yeah.
still are, yes.
I'm glad to see the school board addressing these staffing issues, such.
Do you see
Yeah.
staffing issues at all grades?
Yes,
So across the board?
absolutely.
Yeah.
But, you know,
Across the
like
industries.
cafeteria
And everything,
staff, they
absolutely.
only work 5 or 6 hours.
Well, that's what
So
I'm
they
thinking
don't
too, so-
really, I mean, there's, you know, there's a lot of, people that just don't think about that. They think that they're just there the same amount of time, and they get
Right.
the same amount of benefits, and, you know, it's not, it isn't
It's a
that way.
part-time job,
And
15
that's-
hours an hour.
yeah.
I just,
So, yes, hopefully the community will support this. And I think our HESA team, which was Krista, Tom Enright, and Kate Stoll, and Kelly. Kelly
And
did
Gina,
all the-
and
All
Gina.
the buzzing numbers.
and just for perspective too, how many, what is the distribution of the staff on and off staff? Is it like a close to 50-50?
Yeah, this one, I believe, is very close to 50-50, yeah.
Okay. Any other
What-
questions?
What's the, looking at HESA contracts in general, what's the total percentage increase year to year over, is that an
It
easy
varies.
number to?
It has been, like,
I mean, specifically for this proposal, if you add in the 180,000, 162,000 versus whatever it was that we were spending last year.
80, 90K, right?
I'm just wondering what the percentage increase is.
I don't know if
Versus
percent,
what is it?
it's like an
I would-
$81,000 difference, but I'm not.
I can look, I have it right here.
between 1 and 20.
Yeah.
Seems to me like the increases every year, or the contracts
Sure.
have been in the order of like 70, 80K, right?
yes.
I don't know.
In general, although we had one year, not,
Yeah, 88.
was it last year or the year before last? I forget, which we had a pretty big number because we took the custodial staff from one cat to another cat, kind of like what we did with the food service people.
Right, so the contract we were working under with HESA had a first-year cost of $117,000.
That's it.
Last year's cost was, that we voted on for this year's budget, was 88.5. And then this one, the third year that would have come up, as Cindy said, was the 86,727. That's now going to be 162. So it's
80,000.
it's almost doubling. Yeah, it's like an 83% increase, but then for the second year of this contract, it drops down to,
A 3.5%. Right.
right, a 3.5% increase. And, I'm just confused where it says salaries are 82,473, but the warrant article would be 73,212.
That is interesting, isn't it?
So it's probably gonna be 82,473.
Yeah, I think that's a leftover amount from another.
Right, and so
view.
that kind of
Yeah.
puts it back in line with,
Yeah.
you know, where the other,
Right.
contracts have been. Did that answer your question, Brian?
No, but I'm kind of realizing that I think my question might not have an easy answer, so
Yeah.
that's actually fine.
Okay, okay. Any other questions at this point? Well, again, if there are any that come up, once we've all slept on it, or, you know, had a little turkey and, you know, thought about a few things, you know, please just let me know, and we will, follow up with that. Tom actually did have a question, brought something to my attention with regard to, and this might be a question for Lauren, who unfortunately isn't here right
Okay.
now. But if you look at the superintendent's view, line 368, there's a pretty significant increase in the vision and hearing consulting. I'm gonna assume that's related to, cases or, specific IEPs that we might have for
Yes,
students.
I
but
would
maybe if
imagine.
Lauren could just give us a little,
About
we
what
might be
that is.
contracting more services or something.
Yep.
Based on student needs.
You said vision, right?
Yeah, yeah, vision, hearing consulting.
Okay.
That'd be great. So yeah, if anyone, as you're looking through whether you're reviewing the superintendent's view and the budget trend file, I'll just remind everybody that those consolidated levels, if you click on the plus signs, they all open up and expand to include 858 lines of information. If you're more comfortable having kind of the historical
So the Excel spreadsheet
information.
grew by the same percentage number.
Yeah, yeah,
It'll make for excellent reading over Thanksgiving.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, nothing else.
So that's one tricky way of measuring how well we're doing, by how many lines we
How much work Kelly puts into it.
Yeah, I don't want to think about it that way.
I guess another question I have, just more in general, is I do still see the, for, building projects. Kelly, if you can kind of just share a little overview about where we stand with
Well,
building aid, that's
yes.
helpful, but.
We had hoped to have some actual numbers that we could have presented to the school board at their meeting, but that didn't happen. So we're still working on those. So I'm hoping we'll have more information in the December meeting for the school board, and then you guys as well. You know, we're looking at, like, the cafeteria is probably at the top of the list, the renovations for that. And a couple other things, like the main entrance here for the middle school, we'd like to do that. There's, the science rooms could use a definite upgrade because they're from very long ago,
So while we were waiting for input on building aid, and I don't remember the total, the cap on the dollars that were available of the, I believe it's 17 projects that were approved and on
Yes.
the list. Our district falls at the end of that list to projects like 14, 15, 16, and
Yes.
17.
Yes,
And ahead of
exactly.
us are projects valued at like $175 million and like things like that. So
Right.
there are some very significant projects ahead of us
Yes.
that, in all likelihood, take us out of the running for the next 2 years.
Yes.
Which is the cycle that,
Yes.
help me, Kelly, the listing is available for.
Yes, right,
So,
right.
while we made the list,
Yay.
really, really don't feel like there'll be any benefit
Yeah.
to building aid
It's not
for
looking good.
those projects. So that's the information we were kind of waiting on, is a kind of forward look to see what we put forward.
Right, well, and we're also waiting from the architect and
Yeah, and all
engineer
of
to
that
get
as well.
some numbers, but we'd like to put something forward for the community to consider, and, you know, maybe it's a 4.5 million project, let's say, that includes some of those things I just mentioned, so.
Right. Okay.
So aside from that and all the usual warrant articles, are there any other warrant articles contemplated?
The only other one could be, that I'm aware of anyway, could be the retained fund balance that we've all talked about here as well. I have a contingency amount of $125,000 in here, but the school board also discussed whether or not to not have the contingency, but try to up the percentage of the retained fund balance from 1% to 2.5% or 2% or whatever. So I wasn't there for that, Cindy.
We touched on it, I mean,
Okay.
they were waiting to kind of see what the budget committee wanted, which way you wanted to go, I mean, we just barely touched.
Okay.
So
All
in that scenario, the contingency will be increased, but it will probably be funded at a later year, like next year.
Well,
Or is the number gonna be acquired to raise it right now from, in this cycle, from the 125 to whatever that percentage is?
well, we have a retained fund balance now, so
Right.
it's not a new thing, but it would increase it for the next year, so.
Right,
I
so
don't know
if
if
we
I'm
go from
answering
1
your
to
question.
2.5%, they will increase it.
No, okay, but if we go from 1 to 2.5%, it doesn't require 2.5% to be set aside.
Oh, no.
It only
So we would then
allows
have
for
to
the
decide on the amount.
flexibility.
Okay.
Right, it only allows for
All
that
right.
kind of flexibility,
Right,
depending on what the net assessment.
And
exactly.
maybe we
At the
could
end of
do
the
it in
year.
stages, for example.
Yeah, you
Right.
could. I mean, what I usually do, like, if, for instance, the other districts, I'll use Hollis as an example. They have 2%, or is it 2.5? Now I get confused, but, and for many years, I never put forth a number that was that high for them to approve. I did during COVID years, because we never knew where we were gonna stand, and I think this year too, I also made it at the max amount, but it doesn't mean I had to. I didn't for many years, so.
I've been very clear on my position with regard to the contingency and the retained fund balance. I support both of them. We had both of them for many, many years.
Yes.
Or, several years. I think they're both important. I think it's from a fiduciary responsibility, I think for a budget of this size and magnitude, the amount of money we're talking about, again, I understand the issues to taxpayers and whatnot, but I do feel that it's important to have both at a very minimum. If we were to have only the retained fund balance, I do believe it should be a higher amount. I'm not saying it needs to go to the 5, while I have no issue with the 5%, I understand the concerns and issues of the community, so would support the 2 or 2.5. But in at the absolute worst case, I feel both articles need to be included in the warrant so that if one fails, we have the other.
I agree, and I agree more than ever now, because this will put it into perspective. We've been doing the HVAC project this summer at the high school, and some of those units are $300,000. Well, if one of those went out, we could not replace it, because we don't have that kind of money.
My only issue with that is it's not with us having that in the school budget. It's that the community will be double dipped essentially at the town level, because the town unrestricted fund balance is based upon the total budget of the town, including the school districts.
The unreserved fund balance that the town maintains only comes from the town budget.
Oh, I understand, but the number is based upon the
The
entire
the
budget.
percentage that they seek to fund that at or keep that balance at
Right.
is based on the total level.
So essentially, we're taking two dips at the pond.
I don't really view it, I appreciate that, but I don't view it that way because the money at the town level is for town-specific items. This is for school-specific.
Oh, I understand,
And, yeah.
but I'm saying that the town-specific items are, it's not 5% of the town's budget. It's 5% of the town's budget plus the school's budget.
Just the level they can justify
Correct,
maintaining it at.
right.
They don't have to keep it,
No, they don't have to. I understand.
yeah.
That's just I'm raising another question. That's just a formula that they use to allow them to keep an amount of money in reserve.
Right.
But that doesn't mean they're gonna make that available to the school.
None of it's
Well, it's not
available
for the
to
school, it won't be used for the school. That's my point. We're basing the number on the school's budget, but we can't use it for the schools.
Okay? That's a town issue.
Yeah, that's my only concern with it.
So are we discussing this topic now, or is this gonna be a topic for a future discussion?
You know what, it's gonna be the
So-
topic of every meeting until we decide what goes on the
Okay.
the warrant. So we
Okay.
can talk about it now, we can talk about it next month, it's just
Okay.
gonna be
I was
kind of,
gonna say,
So-
can we kind of get a consensus, because Andy asked which way the budget committee was leaning, and I know that you and Matt had, different views on the percent, so at least I would kind of like to have a feeling on what to
Yeah.
take back to the school board.
So I'll say this, then, I'm gonna be opposed to it, because
opposed to which?
opposed to increasing the retained amounts. I'm in favor of the contingency fund as an alternative to that. And the reason is because at our, was it our previous meeting or the meeting
Can I
before
just
that?
ask,
Yes, go
while
ahead.
and I'm not letting
Yep,
you
go ahead.
get your argument
Yep, go
out,
ahead.
but, are you still in favor of the 1% that we have? For the
Yes,
retained fund balance?
yes,
Okay.
but much more hesitantly now.
Okay.
So at one of our meetings here, we were told that, the retention is rarely used, only used for emergencies. It's basically a contingency and whatnot. And then the very next morning, like just hours later, I learned that the SAU board had decided to increase salaries at the SAU. Had good reason for doing so, but they were planning to use the retained funds to fund that beyond the budget that was approved by the voters.
So just to be clear, the SAU budget has its own unreserved fund
Yes,
balance.
yes, which is
different-
separate from the co-op. It's separate from the co-op,
And
yes.
it's not a retained fund balance, it's an unreserved fund balance. It's
Yes.
directly funded by if the budget underruns.
Yep.
That's the only other school-related budget that can act like the town and keep the difference, basically.
Yes,
in an
yes,
unreserved fund
but
balance.
it's very similar, but you're
Just
right,
to be
those,
clear,
those,
just
those
to
are,
be clear.
those are clear, distinctions for it. So I was really surprised that they would take that, and they made the argument that it was an emergency, to do that. I understand the staffing issues they were facing at the time, and I don't necessarily disagree with that, but I do feel that they could have made one-time retention bonuses rather than salary increases, which obligates the SAU towards increasing the budget in the future, which I think it needed to happen anyway. I'm supporting the proposed SAU budget, but the fact they were willing to use the retained budget to do salary increases for it broke a lot of my confidence for it. And given that the SAU board is made up of the various school boards up there, it erodes my trust in the co-op school board managing this quite as well as a contingency would. So I'm more in favor of having a separate contingency, which has more restrictions on it than simply the retained funds, which, quite frankly, they can do anything they want with it. And I'm a little bit less trusting of them now than I was just at our previous meeting, which I defended them quite vigorously at.
You did.
So what I'll do for the next meeting is give everybody a copy of the law for each of the retained fund balance and the contingency fund, because I'm not, it'll be a good basis for an ongoing, like the ongoing discussion. I think it's, if anyone wants to look, I think it's RSA 198 4B. Oh, I should know this. It's 198 something. And so, it's either 198.4 or 198.20. Oh, 198.4B, contingency fund, there it is. So I'll send that to everyone so that you can just understand kind of where the law, what the law states. So if you just bear with me for a moment, I can read you the requirements for the contingency fund, and it does discuss retained fund balance as well. A school district annually by an article separate from the budget and all other articles in the warrant. Talks about governing bodies of a municipality. When the operation of the schools is by a department of the city, may establish a contingency fund to meet the cost of unanticipated expenses that may arise during the year. A detailed report of all expenditures from the contingency fund shall be made annually by the school board and published with their report. Section 2, notwithstanding any other provision of law, a school district by a vote of the legislative body may authorize indefinitely until specific rescission the school district to retain year-end unassigned funds. Oh, this is not the updated law, actually. And an amount, this one still says the 2.5. Hold on a minute, folks, sorry, I need the 5% one. Might be this one.
I think this is definitely
Here it
worth
is.
discussing at the
Now I
next
got
meeting.
it, sorry. Notwithstanding any other provision of law, a school district by a vote of the legislative body may authorize indefinitely until specific rescission the school district to retain any unused portion of the year-end unassigned general funds from the preceding fiscal year in subsequent fiscal years, provided that the total amount of year-end unassigned general funds does not exceed in any fiscal year 5% of the current fiscal year's net assessment calculated under RSA 198.5. Prior to expending retained general funds, the school board shall hold a prior public hearing on the action to be taken with such funds. Notice of the time, place, and subject of such hearing shall be published in a newspaper of general circulation in the relevant municipality at least 7 days before the meeting is held. An annual accounting and report of the activities of the retained general fund shall be presented to the school board of the district and published in the annual report. So I'll make sure everybody gets that for their reference.
Good, 'cause you lost me at 4B.
Sorry.
I want to ask Brian on your issue. I'm trying to piece it together because you're okay with the salary increases.
I would have preferred
being-
retained balances, but I do agree that they needed to
It
do
was
something.
necessary to
Yeah, it was
raise the
necessary for
salaries.
them to do something. Would have preferred retained bonuses
Okay.
and then put the salary adjustments that end up happening in the proposed budget for the next year,
Okay.
but
Where would that money have come from for the retention bonuses? What would your proposal be for that?
they had room so the use of retention bonus, it's mostly funded out of the budget. They were saying there's a possibility they might have to use the retained funds for it. But to me, it's a bit of an easier sell to say, if we're going to use the retained balance for a one-time retention bonus versus a permanent salary
Okay.
adjustment.
So your
That's
concern is that
still kind of a gray area, but it's maybe less gray.
They committed the school district to a future liability by using it for that purpose, as opposed to making. it
That's
a
part of
one-time
my
payment.
concerns about
Okay.
it.
All right, now I understand.
Would there have been issues with teachers not wanting a bonus but wanting a salary step instead? Like the bonus is nice,
This
but
is the
then-
SAU budget, so this is for the central office staff. That's
Yeah.
what
But
Brian's
yes,
referring to.
so we're just talking about the SAU staff, not
And what,
the schools.
what
But-
total amount are we looking at for that? That commitment is probably, for the SAU
Don't
staff, it
recall
can't
off
be a
the
big
top
number.
of my head.
I mean, but I'm just saying, it can't be a big number,
Was
but
it
is that just the SAU
56,000?
I
office?
want to say it was, I can pull it up.
I think it was
52 or
56.
56 or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't remember off the top
I
of
think
my
it was
head.
56,000.
Something like that.
You know, I'm thinking about what you're saying, and I understand where you're coming from. But you didn't solve the problem by giving them a retention bonus, because after that bonus is gone the next year, they still have the same salary problem.
But that's what he's
But-
suggesting,
but-
is that we bring that to the public to vote on the change.
Yes, as
in the
part of the
next- in the
budget.
following
And I do
cycle.
support the
Okay.
new budget, which provides, additional salary adjustments beyond it and such. But I have an issue with the board basically expanding their own budget just a month after the voters voted on a particular budget for the SAU, and then like a month later, the SAU board expanded the budget that the voters approved by a fairly significant amount. And yeah. At the same time, though, I do have to recognize they were dealing with a very difficult situation, that had come up for it. So this is not just coming out of the blue here, but it was tough.
The operating budget for the SAU has very little wiggle room in it, because it's just basically salaries. I mean, it's not like an operating budget with all these line items and all the different, school districts and, vision or those type of things. The SAU is a really tight budget.
There's
Right,
less
the whole
flexibility
budget,
there. Yeah.
being put forward for the entire SAU is just under $2.3 million. The increase that Brian was referring to was $52,125.
So, I mean, no
Yep.
matter what, the money had to come from that source. It's just, you're just questioning how it was applied. Which I understand.
Yes, yep,
I think the times are so uncertain with
yep, but,
inflation.
yeah,
And that's the killer. How much is it gonna go up every time the Fed raises
Yeah.
the interest rates?
but I'm also concerned about precedents, here too. It was particularly jarring, just to come from this meeting where we said it's only used for, emergencies that happen, and unexpected emergencies, and then to learn that, yeah, they had done this like months earlier, just a month after the voters had approved the budget. That was very jarring to me. I don't want to make a mountain out of, a hill. I won't call it a molehill, but it's not a mountain here. But that really caused me a lot of concern.
Does anyone else have any opinions on contingency versus retained fund balance versus both versus increasing amounts? Just to kind of give Cindy some
I
additional
have some
direction.
thoughts, but I don't wanna voice them here right now. But I'm still debating in my mind. There's a
Okay.
sticking point that I have that is different from his, that just, I just don't
Okay,
like.
so we'll put that on the topic for December.
Yes, definitely. Christmas time would be a
sorry,
better time to talk
Remember,
about
we
it.
gotta be writing warrants for
I know,
Yes.
I
Don't
know.
wait too long,
Yeah.
please.
February.
Yeah.
Do you wanna get a sense of the board
Yeah, I don't know that I could,
at this point?
right, at this point, I just don't feel like I could.
Okay.
Okay,
So there's nothing we can send her back with right now, is what you're saying? We'll
she
discuss
heard
it?
the discussion, I mean, I don't know if we, so Tom
We're all
just
over the
talked
map.
about a sense of the board, so the sense of the board we can do it really quickly. Get a sense of the board for who would support a contingency, adding the contingency article.
You saying the contingency
Yeah.
or
If you
the?
get-
Well, there are different
Okay.
levels, so I'm
Yes.
just gonna ask one, the other, both, we're
Yep.
just gonna kinda, cause it's too much to
So
say.
the first question is contingency only?
First one's contingency only, is contingency.
I abstain.
Yep.
Okay, hold on,
Yep.
Yeah.
poor Dawn. Okay, so a sense of the board, for the contingency article. I'm in support of that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
You said contingency only,
Contingency only.
okay,
You can vote up for more than one.
okay.
Yes.
Short of anything else, I'll take the contingency. Okay. The retained fund balance language, that maintains 1%.
That retains the 1%, but
But-
we
but
wouldn't need a
that's-
warrant
that
article
keeps-
for that.
We do, actually.
Do we?
Did I send you this email?
I don't know, you asked me to ask Jim O'Shaughnessy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't heard back from him yet.
Okay, so, I asked Kelly to get clarification because the nature of 198-4B changed. So I don't know if that means we have to accept the new language or we just roll into the new language. So I asked Kelly from a legal perspective where the 1% stands.
I think we do have, if we want the 5%, I think we do have to have a new warrant
If
article.
we want to change the percentage,
yes.
we need a new warrant article.
Definitely.
Okay,
So,
then we're okay with the one, if we don't wanna change
Yeah,
it.
I don't think we have to do
we
anything.
wanna just keep the
right.
1%,
Okay.
we stay where we are, the only thing we would put up with the 1% is a contingency article.
Right, that's
Okay.
my understanding.
Wherever, I think the 5 are still good. So that's the contingency in addition to the 1%.
Right.
All right, sense of the board, we're all good with that.
Yep.
Sure.
All right, that's unanimous.
I'm not good with
He's-
that.
he's-
Sorry,
He's
you're
abstaining.
abstaining, sorry. So that's 6, 001. Okay.
There you go.
So now, sense of the board for who would support an increase to the retained fund balance percentage.
From 1 to what? Is it,
An increase,
Yes. Okay, 1, 2, 3,
is there
4,
an increase of,
five,
it was, I heard
a
5, I
general
heard 2.5.
increase, this is
Well,
gonna go on.
And I'm
Five
saying-
is-
All right, I'm
saying-
gonna do, we're just gonna say 2.5 or 5.
Yeah.
You know, up to
Okay.
2.5.
Oh, okay.
If we wanna change the percentage up to 2.5,
So this is part C.
yeah, part C.
Up to
1, 2,
2.5.
3, 4, 5.
I'd be good with that.
I didn't put up.
You asked for all this information.
No.
You're abstaining.
No,
I'd be
You're
opposed to it.
abstaining.
You're
You're no,
abstaining
you're
too?
opposed.
I'd be a no to it.
That would be, so the 2.5 is a 511. And you're a 511 on increasing the percentage.
Yes,
would be
increasing
opposed
the
to that.
percentage,
Okay, so
yes.
511. And then the increase to 5%, the retained fund balance increase to 5%. Anyone in favor of that?
Not
Okay.
thi- Not this time.
Okay. And so let me just add,
Shut up.
let me just see if I can do this yet another way. The fund balance increase of 2.5% and the contingency. Who's in support of that?
I am.
Opposed?
I mean, there'd be two separate votes. I would vote in favor of the contingency and opposed to the increase.
Okay,
That's
so, if
contingency
we-
only.
okay, so that's opposed to both together, and you're still abstaining. Okay, Cindy, does that give you
It does.
what you need? Thank you, Tom. Great. That wasn't
sorry,
as
I was
painful as I
happy
thought it
since-
would be. I thought it was just gonna
It's a
be
bit of
so
a
much worse
challenge.
than that. So, okay, great. That was a great discussion. I will have that other, I'll get that language to everybody so that they can just see it and have it, and, we can go from there. And,
Question?
yeah, maybe we can I can work with you, Kelly, just about like like based on the current budget
Sure.
or where we ended up last year, maybe
Okay.
what the
Yeah,
changes would have
I
been.
could do that.
Yeah.
Do we need to take another vote regarding the new guidance? I mean, we don't have to do it every 5 times, or maybe twice.
We're getting there. That, okay, we'll
Yeah.
take,
You
we'll
just
take that, we'll take that. Were there any other issues at the board level?
The retirements and we had class discussion, we had quite a bit of discussion on class sizes and class discussion and how we could work that little merry-go-round as to having the student, directory of classes
Right,
for February
oh,
and then try to figure out what staff we needed for April because of contracts.
right,
So there is some conversation about class sizes still.
okay. And so if we want to really, dive into that, we can always watch the live stream or review your draft minutes or your final minutes when they're available. We can certainly, there are 2 other things I want to get to really quickly, but we can go back to Raul, your question about guidance. We can do one of 2 things. We can leave our guidance number where we set preliminary guidance at our last meeting. And as Kelly indicated, they're going to continue to, revise and evaluate the budget based on, the next phase will be based on retirements and things like that, and see if there are any adjustments that can be made. Or we can make an adjustment and issue final guidance based on the revised calculation that lowers guidance because of the reductions that are in round 3 for special education and NHRS. So that would reduce the operating budget final guidance, that would move us from 26,864,904 to 26,565,131. No one has this calculation, I just did it while we were sitting here
Can
talking
you
about
repeat the
something.
numbers, please?
Sure. Our preliminary guidance was 26,864,904. Our revised guidance would be 26,565,131. And the budget, the operating budget right now stands at $26,526,913.
So it's already under that.
It's already under
Under
that
Yep.
by $38,218. So, I can kind of have a little discussion on where everyone feels that they want to go at this point. Raul, you brought it up, would you?
Yeah, I mean, I think I think we're almost there.
Mm-hmm.
So I think for clarity, and I think just moving forward, we should just go ahead and make a decision, make this the final guidance.
Make the final guidance be the lower number,
Yes.
okay,
Which they're already 38 under.
yeah.
Do you anticipate meeting that, or is anything bringing that above that number?
We're still waiting for a couple of numbers. Could they go 38,000 higher? I suppose the potential is there, but
I just wanna
Probably
go
not.
cut that off, and
Guidance.
then if they find they need something and have to go back to it, or they'll be over budget, and
Yeah. But guidance is just kind of a general target area.
Yeah.
And
Right.
they're already
but
at that
we've given
area,
them a
so.
guidance.
We're at
it's
less,
like-
way less than 1%, so.
Right, we've given them a number. They
Well,
have a guidance number now,
right.
and they're below it.
I think
And this
the,
also makes it, makes a point that they went through the process of trying to get it, round 3, and they lower the number by a substantial amount, so this is kind of accepting that.
so this,
And,
this still would
Whatever.
be a 5% increase in total warrant articles from year to year.
right, and when you think of,
and more
inflation
if
8%, and, that's pretty good,
That is pretty
It
good
sounds
for
pretty
this
good.
year. Although, we'll still have probably the other warrant article for facilities.
potentially, yes.
Potentially as well, but even so, I think a 5%, total increase
Yeah,
from
and-
year to year, and this year is doing
And
pretty
that-
good.
And that, bond or lease that you would put forward includes, if it's a bond, it's gonna include like a half year's interest. for the
Yes.
fiscal year, so.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
I would-
so,
I would suggest that if we left it where it was, it would signal that the school district did an excellent job in achieving our stated goal. And coming in $38,000 under guidance would
Yeah.
maybe aid in the approval process.
That's what I'm thinking too. We gave them the guidance, my opinion is leave the guidance there. They showed how
We don't
well
have to
they've
match,
done to
do we?
beat that, and, cause if we keep, you keep cutting it a little bit lower, then now they'll be like, oh, they got it by 10 grand. Or if they find they need that,
right,
it's
right
there.
now, they're just about 300,000 below guidance.
my opinion, leave the guidance as you guys,
I-
cause I wasn't here. But again, I might have to abstain anyway, but.
You just said 300,000 below guidance.
About that, with the
Okay.
current guidance, the
Right.
preliminary guidance.
So if we're
There-
gonna leave it like
Oh,
that,
preliminary guidance, okay.
Preliminary
so if we're gonna leave it like that, then we gotta make preliminary equals to final,
Yes,
And-
that's what
So,
Dave is recommending.
and we may not all support that, so.
yeah, the reality is, our guidance to the SAU, there's probably a half a dozen people outside this room that knows or cares about it, and they all work for the SAU in one way or another, so.
Don McDonald is
So,
gonna capture
I-
very
I'm-
accurately the information and the meeting minutes,
I,
okay?
I'm fine with them.
Okay,
And
but
like I mentioned last time at the meeting, we have a back and forth going on, and we gave it an official number, an initial number, and they did a great job coming down, and we're basically accepting that number. That's part of the process.
Yeah.
It sends the same signal, whether you're using the lower number or the higher number, okay?
I'm fine with adjusting our guidance with the latest numbers that we have for retirement and, what was it?
NHRS.
Yeah, NHRS,
sorry,
that's the
special
retirement
education,
and
special
special education thing. I'm fine with making those adjustments now that we have better, more accurate numbers. But in the end, it kind of doesn't matter what we do here, so.
Everyone, okay, so let me see if I can get, if this would help everyone. If we make the adjustments to final guidance, depending on wherever, the budget comes below that number, make sure at the, legislative session, we say that the district administration worked hard to, improve on the preliminary guidance by X $100,000 and continue to improve as they move to final guidance. Would that satisfy everybody's?
Sure.
Yeah.
So that'd be our final guidance is what we're changing to now.
Right, so we would kind of mention,
Which there's
we indicate
final
both.
guidance.
Yes.
Right, they're
Yeah.
now below 30 grand, below our final guidance and then, okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
How would everybody feel about that? Okay.
Sure.
So, at this time, I would entertain a motion for to set FY '24 final guidance for the operating budget at $26,565,131.
I'll second that.
From Dave, seconded by Raul. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, I'll take a vote. All those in favor of FY '24 final guidance of $26,565,131, please indicate. Oh, we're unanimous. Very good. Excellent, 700.
The school board appreciates when we have unanimous votes.
Okay, now the only, I know, it's 8:15. I just have a couple of other things I want to mention because it's almost time for
I had a
Thanksgiving.
question before you go. I
Sure.
mean, and we can resolve this offline.
Okay.
But I had a question regarding the adequacy.
Yep,
You sent me a lot of material on that.
that's my
That's
next.
what she's
okay.
got.
Oh,
Do you have a specific question?
well, I wanted, I read I will need to read it again a second time to really comprehend it, but I got a sense of what were the factors that contribute to what the number is. And I was trying to compare Brookline versus Hollis. And I noticed that Brookline on the adequacy was much higher than Hollis. But on the other hand, the SWEB was a lot lower than Hollis. So I think a little bit of explanation is in order here.
Okay.
So I don't know.
Okay, so there's going to be a great overview by the DRA on November 30th that I've planned on participating in,
Okay.
and the person who does that overview is fantastic. He does an exceptional job of explaining adequacy every year, so I will look forward to hearing all about that. There are a lot of elements to the formula for FY '24 that are different and have changed from prior views. As a result of COVID, as a result of statewide education property, there are a bunch of different things that are happening. And in most cases, those extra things that make the adequacy calculation very convoluted do not affect the co-op or our SAU. But, just to your general question, looking at the FY '24 estimate, the key factor driving the statewide education property tax numbers is a change in the legislation back to the statewide education property tax being used to raise a little over $363 million for education funding. So $663 million-ish has always been the baseline. It's never been adjusted for inflation. It's been that number forever. As long as I've been on the budget committee, it's been $363 million. Last year, there was a piece of legislation that said, with that tax, the state only needs to raise $263 million. And that extra $100 million is gonna come from the Education Trust Fund, and it's gonna be paid to districts through adequacy. So when you looked at where we were for FY '23 adequacy aid, the numbers were higher than we would normally see, and the statewide education property tax numbers were lower than we would normally see. Now, as we move into FY '24, we're going back to the $363 million calculation and back to adequacy being excluding that extra $100 million and being more specifically student-driven. So, the rate that the state uses for the FY '24 calculation is $1.44 per thousand based on the the 2021 equalized values without utilities. And each town goes back and takes whatever that dollar amount is that the state has calculated and says, okay, community, we now need to raise that money. So based on the FY '24 estimate, Brookline would need to raise for the co-op, Brookline would need to raise $606,738, and Hollis would need to raise $1,349,341. The rate associated with each of those amounts is based on each individual community's assessed value without utilities. And then that tax rate gets put on your tax bills and is calculated. The difference for why Brookline and Hollis's numbers are so different is directly related to the equalized values of each community. So because Hollis has higher equalized value, we get $1.44 per thousand of equalized value, and that's the way the dollar amount was determined. And Brookline, and I'm just looking at Dave and Brian, Brookline, based on that $1.44 and their equalized value, they only have to raise $606,738 only for the co-op. It's a larger number for Brookline and Hollis in total.
But that's all based on.
So it's directly,
value
the
of-
short answer to your question is it's driven by equalized value.
Okay. But the total numbers are roughly about the same, so that's kind of interesting.
What do you mean?
I don't know, I took the table and
What are they the same?
I pulled out the number. When you add the adequacy plus swept, it's.
Okay, then when you're talking about adding them together.
Yeah, because
Okay,
that was.
so when you add them together, yes,
nice
they are
explanation.
equivalent, which would, the adequacy piece is driven by average daily ADMR, average daily membership in residence.
Yes.
And this, if you look at just the adequacy piece, this would look like, the estimate for FY '24 shows more students in Brookline versus Hollis, but Brookline also receives an additional stabilization grant. So I would have to look at where the ADM is breaking out, because once the part of the adequacy that's student-driven is calculated, there's a direct dollar amount that gets added onto Brookline's side. So that is another contributing factor. So it isn't, that 1.956 million for Brookline is adequacy, including this stabilization grant. That had been at, I want to say, I think it was like, I don't want to guess. It was a pretty substantial number. There was legislation that was dropping it annually. They removed that legislation and put it back up. I have $750,000 in my head, but I don't know if that was for all of Brookline or just the co-op piece of it.
Well, the fact that the Brookline number is huge too. It's
So I was
probably above-
actually,
I can find it, just give me one.
I was
minute.
looking at the table you sent.
Yep.
There was a table that had all the co-op towns in the state,
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I pulled the numbers from Hollis and the number from
Right.
Brookline.
Yeah.
And,
no, there's a larger,
and usually when you give your briefing in March, this is typically the toughest concept to apprehend, to comprehend.
I can,
So what we're gonna end up doing now is, because of this discussion, we're gonna have a wonderful meeting minutes that are gonna capture all of it.
the stabilization grant. So if the stabilization grant for all of Brookline is just shy of 759,000. So the co-op gets probably about more than half of
Yeah.
that.
probably, yeah.
So there's, that is already included in that adequacy number. The breakdown that's on the website shows by town, by municipality, without the co-op splits. And then there's that supplemental report that shows the co-op splits.
Right.
But the big spreadsheet of like over 200 communities doesn't address the co-op splits in it. And that's why they have that supplemental document.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
I'm sorry
No, that's
I
okay.
put you on the spot like that.
No, it's fine. It's fine. So,
I think that, one of the things I understand is that the swept funds come back to your community.
they come directly back from the, they never go
You
anywhere.
write a check and they
They're
send it
raised
back
by
to
the
you.
community,
Right.
and they immediately, it takes the entire budget, we drop it by revenue, then we drop it by, the statewide education property tax, we drop adequacy, and to get to a net assessment. So it never really goes to the state, it kind of, it stays
It's all on
in
paper,
each
yeah.
community, yeah, all on paper. So you will see, as we go to FY '24, what will happen to the tax rates is that the statewide education property tax will have a pretty substantial increase from where it is in like today's tax bill to where it is in the FY '24 tax bill. Just because of that, the change going back to the 363 million. So, again, I think after the 30th, when I kind of participate on that call, I might have gleaned a few, I might even have a presentation I can share with everybody. Sometimes they make that available. And if it's the same person who did the overview in the past, he's excellent, and you'll really walk away kind of understanding things, so.
That'd be great.
Okay.
She lost me at 4B.
Sorry. And then the
You mean
other.
in the switch to
I know,
5?
I'm 8:25, I do not want to go past 8:30.
Cindy won't let you.
We got the NASDAQ projections, so, as we're looking at FY '24, we're looking at, I think it's like a
1147.
35 student drop from 1147 to 1112. I have not looked at the Hollis Brookline split on that. I think as you look at the 5 years, you see that it you know, in the next, say, 4-ish years, you start to see the students that are at in the primary grades of making it up to the co-op.
Yeah, they're
So,
coming.
They're coming. They're coming. They're just not going to be here, like, you know, for a couple of years
Big
yet.
capital raise.
So I'd encourage everybody to review that. And again, if you have any other questions or anything, we can address those. And I think, is that it? See, the HESA update, the school board update, we did the non-public. I think that's it.
You got it all.
Cindy, how'd she do?
Okay,
Good
it's 8:26.
When's our next
Did
meeting?
Awesome.
The next meeting, thank you, Brian, would be,
Yeah,
Are we meeting,
second.
the Thursday before Christmas? Or are we moving that?
Are we meeting, well, let's just have a 2-minute conversation on that. Are we good with the 22nd? Are we? you
I'm
wanna-
fine with it personally, but
I am
Gentlemen?
too. There's still one more day of work, so, okay, we'll leave it at at 12:22 then. Perfect.
Sure.
12, 22, 22.
Yep. Okay, it's 8:27. Cindy, I'd love to hear your readout.
Lee did excellent.
Oh my God.
And I do appreciate all the conversation about the warrant, because I need to give some feedback, so, but we are on time. and
Okay.
2 minutes, you can.
I think
call
we
back.
addressed a lot tonight, so, and again, I can't emphasize enough, if as you're reviewing any of this, if there's something you want additional information on, if there's something you have questions on, please let me know. I can consolidate all of the information, forward it to Kelly, and we can, have additional conversations and get our questions answered, so. With that, at 8:28, I'll take a motion to adjourn. From Raul.
I'll second.
Seconded by
Doesn't-
Tony. All those in favor?
aye.
700. Happy Thanksgiving.
abstains.
Thank you
Happy
very much.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
You did it.